Hello and welcome to the Dive Season 4, Episode 23. I am Kobe, joined by Azael and Mark Z, as per usual. And this episode of the Dive is presented by Honda. Thank you very much.
Let's go, man. I like the emphasis on 23 there, by the way.
Because I know Azael loves when Jat used to pop off with the noises, because he would like start out hello and welcome to the Dive.
Exactly.
Really excited about the number.
I just always found it so funny because it was like he'd start talking and he'd be like, hello and welcome to the Dive episode. And then he's like, oh shit, I gotta be hype. 24, like it's just like such
I gotta get like
jump up.
The headsets that like Tyler One and people use for screaming into. Like I don't know how they have with all the compression.
Like the Let's Get Ready to Rumble,
Yeah, it's just like whatever like compresses the noise, so you just get the blown out sound. So we're all calm, and then right when it's like 24, just scream into it.
Yeah, we just need to keep upping the ante to have Jat live on in the Dive.
I'm gonna start doing them like those Sunday ads where like, welcome to the Dive episode.
Wednesday.
And honestly, maybe we just do that for the C9 TSM Classic Show match that's coming up, because that is hype. It got announced on Twitter. Everybody's getting behind it. Everyone's like, oh my God, yes, nostalgia. We're gonna see the old rosters, original Cloud9, original TSM. Friday. And then I don't know. Are we allowed to say the exact
We're
players?
Gonna say it, and they can cut it out if
it'll be announced. It'll
Let's
be
do that.
announced
I like
before the episode's released.
Okay. I just in general like Mark's strategy of like, you know what? Let's do what we're gonna do.
She'll handle it. We'll just give it to her. She'll take care of it.
Pass our problems on to other people.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about, everyone being hyped up for the original lineups, it's pretty much there, You got the actual OG C9, which is dope. And then you have mostly the OG TSM.
So let's say it, because it's Lemon Nation, Balls, Sneaky, High, Meteos. They're all on board. Original Cloud9. And then we got Wild Turtle, Dyrus, the Odd One, X Special, and Boy instead of Reggie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to deflate the matchup, but I definitely want to be like, Reggie, really? You couldn't find like the hour or two that you need for this? Come on.
Well, my guess is it's less to do with the hour or two and more like he didn't want to practice and thought he'd get slammed maybe, That would be my guess, because I don't think Reggie has really played seriously in a really long time.
I mean, I have him on my friends list, and I used to see every once in a while, he'd be playing like Shaco Jungle and stuff. But recently, he's been playing Valorant. I always see him on Valorant, so I think that might be the reason. I don't think he's played.
But do we know about some of the C9 people?
I understand that. Well, so High plays. High doesn't really play ranked anymore, or at least not a lot. Because I know I've talked to him about that, and he's like kind of in the boat with Captain Flowers and myself recently, where he wasn't having that much fun playing ranked. So he still plays, but he plays a lot of normals and kind of like more casually. Balls, I have no idea. I mean, Sneaky's still challenger. Sneaky's still playing all the time.
Meteos
streaming.
Is just pro.
Meteos is a pro. Wild Turtle's a pro on the other side. Lemonation and Balls, I have no idea. And X Special is a collegiate coach, or at least was very recently. So he's like at least really in the game. I don't know how much he's playing.
Let's do analysis on these teams, because I feel like it actually is going to be a bit TSM sided, them switching in Voyboy instead of Reggie, because Voyboy plays every day, all day, right now. And Wild Turtle, it was literally just subbed out of the LCS. So you have Meteos and Wild Turtle as like the most recent.
But
LCS.
I'd rather have Sneaky than Voyboy if they're in the same category too.
Okay, that's true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, it actually comes down to the other ones. Like, I actually think if you're like, okay, you got LCS Pro, Meteos and Wild Turtle. Okay, that's pretty even. But like Turtle, your best player on TSM is matched up against Sneaky, who is like
True.
Sneaky's
legit,
still
playing. He's grinding. Yeah. Sneaky's good.
So that's why I think it comes down a lot to the other people. So I have no idea. Like, do Balls and Lemonation play at all?
Balls definitely does. I played with Balls Flex Q last night. And I think that Balls is
was he popping off?
Is good. He is not he's not playing super seriously, He's not like grinding challenge or anything like that, but he is playing League of Legends.
I followed
Darius plays every once in a while.
But I don't think he's very active. If you check his Twitter, he definitely kind of burned out on the game, I think. So maybe he checks in every now and then, but he's not like.
No, he's not grinding.
Yeah, he's not grinding. So that's making me lean a little bit more toward C9.
I think I might be switching allegiances here. Yeah, now I might be swaying back towards C9 a little.
I think I'm in the C9 camp as well, but still, I feel like in games like this where you're playing against people who are like really incredible, you have like a couple pro level players. If there's just like one real stinker, you know what I mean? Like if there's one person who's like, I haven't logged on League of Legends in 6 years, then it's like, well, that might actually just like solo lose you the game. So I have no idea how the odd one is. I have no idea how Elimination is. We need to get some more intel.
I think those are the two that, and I know Dyer stopped playing a while, but like you're saying, he
plays every once in a while. He just doesn't play all the time.
Special is coaching very recently, so I'm pretty sure that he at least got some games in.
Yeah, I was gonna say the other factor is the draft, because pretty frequently these show matches like are degenerate in terms of what people are playing. So like I hope they like go for some of their best picks. It's like Zach and Rumble and Ash and Zyra.
Yeah, I mean, I want High Zed. I want High Zed trying to have secret agent missions, getting into there to backdoor and stuff.
I feel like High is the kind of guy that's for sure going to go like Zed or something fun.
Yeah, I hope they go for more signature picks than they do like what's fun right now. I know,
dude. You know what would actually be hype is if they recreated a draft from like, I don't know,
like one of their finals.
Yeah, like a finals game or something like that. If they had to play like that draft,
2014,
that would be really cool.
That's summer, the game 5 where Turtle crit his face off. Remake that game and see if those crits happen again, baby.
It was Sneaky on Corky. Turtle was on Tristana. He flashes over the wall. I just watched this because we did a promo on the Cloud9 TSM rivalry. And I was just like, I remember this moment so clearly. Sneaky shoots a rocket at Turtle. He flashes the rocket and over the wall, then gets the crit and pops off on the team. God, that was I
forget what it was. It was like, 3 crits with 25% chance or something? You got 3 in a row. Or it was some BS like that. The TSM guy, or excuse me, the C9 guys never stop talking about.
Got to be lucky to be good. That's like there was this meme in the WoW scene for so long where everyone would say $10,000 mace stun, and there was like, I don't know, like a 2%, 5%, whatever the heck it was. It was some low percentage chance to like when you attack someone with this mace specialization, you can stun them. And and this one warrior like missed the pummel on a heal, he got faked, and then he stunned 3 heals in a row or something like that, like with mace stuns with like the couple percent chance, and won the tournament. And then it was like his share was like $10,000, so everyone was just spam $10,000 mace stun or whatever, and that was like a big meme in the community for a while.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like, I think it was 5%. I think all the masteries were 5%.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because there was like 5 points you could put in it. Yeah, it was Reagan. It was really funny. I might be misremembering some of the details, but yeah, that was a huge meme in the community for a long time. It sounds kind of like that. It's very funny.
Speaking of maces, we have a new mace user, Lillia, joining.
Oh, I was like, what are you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a staff.
I thought you were talking about like, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking.
And now I'm gonna pull up an image. Let's see. Is this a mace?
So it's a staff.
It looks like Rafiki's staff.
Do you feel like a war staff would get bonus from a mace specialization, or is that like a pole arm specialization?
It's like pole arm, I think. Yeah. But like the little lantern thingy that's hanging on the end kind of looks like it has a handle, and you could just like tear that sucker off the staff, and then I think you have a mace.
At least a Morning Star kind of.
Yeah, flail.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm with you, mace spec.
Okay.
All right, that's all we have to say about Lillia. That's it, guys. That was analyze the weapon and head out. Here we go.
Yeah, so Lillia just got announced, and we have very few details. We watched at least I watched the reveal trailer, and then we all just checked out some of the abilities. Did you guys play Dota? I can't remember if we've ever had this conversation. Yeah. So I know everyone is saying it looks like Enchantress, and it does, but the abilities
nothing like Enchantress. There's no
the abilities are giving me way more Leshrac vibes. I don't know if you guys know Leshrac, but he's kind of like an AoE mage. It's not the same, but it's like the idea of the play style where you're kind of charging in, and it seems like you want to constantly be hitting people with the outer ring of your Q. You're dealing like damage over time with your passive. You're speeding up and kind of like running around and slapping people with your Q and just kind of AoEing. It seems pretty cool to me, actually. I'm very excited to try it.
Yeah, the profiles, where it's a lot of damage over time, and Leshrac tries to get multiple ticks off, and it has a delayed CC with the sleep. That's kind of like the splitting Earth kind of AOE stun thing. So I'm vibing with it. I feel it's got some vibes there.
Hands up in the YouTube comments if you didn't play enough Dota to follow this conversation. I'm your representative on the show. I'm like,
are you raising the roof, or are you like surrendering?
Hands up. I'm just like, hey, I don't know what we're talking about. What's going on? Is it a party?
Stick them up, Mark.
No.
Enter the conversation now.
I think it's like Hecarim. That's what I see. The Q spam twirling around. Your 4-legged creature. Running through the jungle, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I got. I do also think it's really funny because in quarantine, the meme of if you know what the one I'm talking about, where they have the Doge with the bonk stick, and he's bonking people on the head for like being horny on Twitter. Her ability, was it the W ability, is that bonk. She's got the staff and she just jumps forward and bonks people on the head. That was immediately what I thought of. I was like, oh my God, we put a meme in the game. She's just going to go around bonking people on the rip.
That's hilarious.
Someone's been reading Disguised Toast Twitter too much. That's what I've discovered.
Yeah, that's actually really funny.
That was my favorite part of the champion. I was like, oh my God, I'm sold.
When I saw this champion, immediately, like aesthetically, I was like, this is the child of Hecarim and Nico,
Yeah. I saw, I was like, this is not my aesthetic right here. This is the opposite of my aesthetic. I'm the edgelordy, thing.
You're the Kane player.
Yeah.
I was starting to think of like ways to build this champion too, because the playstyle does seem, like I say, like it kind of ramps up over time, where you're trying to stack more move speed. You're like applying dots to people. I don't personally enjoy kind of that style, but
I love tanky AP bruisers, rumbles.
Yeah, that's the thing though. I always feel like I have to split. I'm like, oh, I want to be more tanky, but then I also need more dot damage.
It's
Leandries.
To me, I'm thinking like Swain builds. My immediate assumption was like Roa, Leandries. I don't know how much mana you need, so maybe you don't actually need the Roa, but like that was my immediate thought process, was like Roa, Leandries. If move speed is really at a premium and like really you can get crazy, then maybe Spellbinders, but otherwise like Zonias and like this sort of like pseudo tanky style of build where you're trying to give yourself enough HP to like really get in the fight.
GLP to slow them so I can run in and do this and like stuff like that. Yeah,
but it has no HP.
Yeah, and the thing I'm missing is like one of the abilities to have defensive properties. Because if I always feel like if I'm building split and I'm like, oh, I'm building some defense, some damage, that alone doesn't like make me tanky enough. But I guess if she gets move speed and you dodge stuff.
Yeah, but I think to that point, like, where's the scrap shield? Where's the health on hit or something like that? That's going to help you dart in and out. That said, I'm really excited about her E, because I love those kind of like BS shoot an arrow across the map things. And her E, when you shoot it, it goes until it hits, I believe, a champion. It might be a unit
or a wall.
A wall. Yeah. So like, just in base, boom, shoot it down one of the lanes and hope you tag someone. I love like being mid lane, just shooting it up river and seeing where it's going to go. I love those kinds of abilities.
I'm assuming there's a range cap that's a lot shorter than that. You're making it sound like you can just
I don't think there's a range cap.
Well, it just says it'll continue to roll until it hits a champion or collides with terrain, which makes it sound like it has no range
I'm
cap.
pretty sure I think it was Reeve in the comments of the Reddit thread was talking about some of this stuff. He was the one who kind of was like, yes, the Q speed up stacks, so you can get up to 5 stacks from her Q if you're going in and out of combat well. And I think he did say that it does have global range, and if it tags someone, your ult has global range too. I'm pretty sure. So if you tag someone, anyone who has that dot on them, no matter where they are, will be slept.
Oh, that sounds like a lane ganker almost then, right?
That's why I think it's like a jungler. Yeah.
You could show up bot lane and you roll your E down, you hit someone, you sleep them, and then you run up to set up on them and like hit them with the slow, and it sounds interesting. And I mean that like it does feel like that's kind of the whole setup thing, right? It's like the bonk that you were talking about does more damage to people that are at the center, right? So it's like I could see the setup being you hit them with the bowling ball, you sleep them up, and then out of the sleep they take more magic damage. So then you hit them with the direct center of the W, and you're hitting them with the outside of the Q trying to chase them down, right? Like, so I could see that kind of setup being pretty cool. I mean, obviously, so much of the playstyle is dictated based on the numbers. Like, do they make it heavy, more like HP and stuff scaling, so it's like lower on the damage and you are tanking enough to stay in fights? Do they make it like the AP ratios are just insane and then your ER is just a one shot? Then maybe you're just like a Luden's mage, right? A lot of it's going to depend on that, but I'm at least really curious. I hope it is more a bruisery mage, because there's less of that sort of like dot playstyle in the game. I've always loved that dot playstyle, and I actually really miss old Swain because of that. Like new Swain is like, yeah, exactly. New Swain is like cooler, I guess. But I really miss the old kind of like dot mage. Only champion I feel like that at all with now is like Malzahar, I guess. And I still like Malzahar, but I really miss old Swain.
The last thing I'll say on it though is that they've taken 2 attributes from Zoe, one of the most hated champions in the game, in that you can miss your E and it keeps rolling and people can still run into it or get hit by it, and the sleep, which is one of the most annoying parts about that champion. So I could definitely see some people getting frustrated. To be fair, this is her ultimate, is the sleep, so it feels way better than.
And for me, at least, the frustration of Zoe is less the abilities and more the range at which she can do them. That's a part that always really gets me.
Some global stuff right here.
Yeah.
I feel like the reason people hate the sleep, though, isn't the sleep mechanic, because it's just CC that, it's just CC. That's
it doesn't cost or anything.
It's the puddle, and that's what people dislike about when you miss it lays on the ground. This, if I don't know the move speed of the projectile, but if I miss you, it's not like it's gonna pop on the ground.
You said it just keeps going forever.
Yeah, but if it's already missed, it's not like there's like a line of people like all in one lane. It's like, oh well, I missed that one. Here, hopefully the next one. Like I don't think it seems as annoying.
Is Zoe just gonna be better? Do these things better then? More annoyingly.
I mean, she doesn't seem as pokey as Zoe.
This seems more like AoE teamfighty to me. At least that's like how I'm reading the kit. Like when I hear about like stacking move speed, they're intending you to be in a fight long enough to stack your move speed, damage over time passive, like AoE on the
just
W.
Talking about the sleep. And,
No, I mean, it's an AoE. If you like go into a team fight and land a Q or something on 3 people, you're going to sleep 3 people, which is just super different than how Zoe sleep, which is set up for picks and stuff. So yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's gonna feel really different too, and people aren't gonna hate the sleep mechanic.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if it is easy to actually like get the hits on multiple people and set up the sleep. Then it's kind of almost like Naga Siren style. Like there's obviously like they're pulling from like lots of different areas, and it is its own unique champion. But it's like there's some really interesting stuff that you could do with Naga Siren and Dota 2, where it's like you had this ultimate with sleep everyone, and you could set up for combos outside of it. Obviously, this requires hitting abilities first, which makes it a lot more difficult to do that. But it would be pretty cool, if in the world where you're picturing like, oh, you get that 3-man sleep, and then the shockwave is like waiting on top of them. That kind of thing seems pretty hype. So I'm actually really excited for this champion.
All right, time for our Honda MVP section. Our Honda MVP section is going to take a bit of a turn to another lane as we focus in on what are some of the MVP style roster moves of the bottom teams. There's been a scramble at the bottom of the LCS. Everybody below 7th place. We were talking about last week, making all these roster moves. It's time to evaluate them. Who comes out ahead in 100 Thieves, Dignitas, Immortals?
Well, we go in our opinion of who's looking the best, or we.
Let's start with 100 Thieves then.
Give me your spiciest take on any of them, positive or negative.
The youngest guy. Or not the youngest guy, but the least amount of time playing League of Legends of any player in the LCS in the history of LCS. Only 2 years. True? Yeah.
Really?
In the inaugural season, maybe in 2013 when we first started.
How much did Bunny play when we pulled Bunny out? He was still in high school. We were playing with him. He was like 17.
Okay, fine. I
don't know how much he played.
Just roll with it, Mark. Come on, throw me a little something.
Sorry, I'm being a downer. My bad. Davey Downer. I thought Pumi didn't look. Poom. I didn't think he looked great. I would say I was a little disappointed. But he's subbing into a pretty bad situation, I think, with how the team is really struggling. So I was definitely a little disappointed, but I'm not judging him at all as like a career trajectory. Just like, oh, that weekend it was not a flashy like, hey, look at this guy coming out of nowhere kind of weekend.
I would say the Rakan game I thought was solid. you know, again, like I'm with you in that it wasn't like he was just like 1v9ing the game and like, oh my God, he's the MVP. But I also didn't really like feel like I saw anything egregious. I'm struggling to remember the Thresh game more, but the Rakan game, I remember coming away from that being like, this guy's pretty good. He's pretty solid. And given that he's only been playing the game for 2 years and this is his first weekend in LCS, that makes me excited just to like see trajectory wise, like where he can go, how fast can he develop. Because, you know, being able to get to LCS level in 2 years speaks to your ability to improve and really like soak up information. So, you know, I'm hopeful that a player like that can continue to do so at the professional level and can continue to improve at like a really, really fast rate.
What about contracts? I haven't heard much on the contracts boat. I watched this interview with Travis that Travis did. I thought it was really good. Talked to him a decent amount as well, but contracts just straight up laid it all out, admitting, yep, you know, I got demoted to academy and I thought I was too good for academy. I didn't put in the effort. I did not respect my opponents and thought of it as a joke, which is a big problem that we've been discussing for multiple weeks now with the Academy League that has led to a lot of the outcry that we've seen recently from the community. And he owns up to it. And he says, and then I realized, why the hell am I even playing if I'm not giving it my all? And I think that's really important for any human in life. Why are you doing anything if you're not giving it your all? Why are you half-assing anything if that is your life? And
because it pays well.
I don't know about anything. Because
why do you think I'm at the dive? You think I like the dive? You guys just pay real good.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of my friendship with you guys. No, just
I was starting to build up into this big speech. You know
I'm sorry. I had to poke that balloon. Sorry, I had to pop it.
I mean, I'm with you, right? But there's also like, I don't need to go 100% on everything, right? Like I can play some single player games and like, I don't need to speed running in an hour. Like I could, you know, I could chill.
All right,
but to Kobe's point, this is like your life. This is like your life calling. You know, like this is what you're devoting your future
job.
Yeah, it's what you're devoting your youth to. You know, like you're giving up tons. Like pro players get a lot, obviously, in terms of fame and money and these kinds of things, but you also give up a lot to do it. I think, and so like to that point, yeah, like what if you're gonna be in this position, you better be giving it your all. You know, like. People can coast, and it's good to acknowledge, and it's cool to see him admit that like I was coasting a little bit.
It's a dream for a lot of people, so that's where I feel like the respect comes in. Like you do need to you know, commit to it fully. And he talks about fully respecting all of his academy opponents, trying as hard as he can to get to this point. And I even talked to, you know, Papa Smithy talking about the leadership qualities that were part of the reason of him putting in contracts as well.
I mean, I think it's pretty exciting to hear that. Contracts, like when he first came into the scene in the LCS, like this is a player that I thought was going to have, you know, maybe not to the same extent, but like Blabber-esque trajectory where I was like, holy shit, this guy is actually really good. He can play, you know, so well, insanely aggressive. He has so much confidence. Mechanically, he's a beast. He just needs to learn, you know, some restraint, and he needs to like get some more experience. And this could be the total package. And then it just like, you know, he's gone, right? You know, he got traded off of Cloud9, and I know he wasn't really super happy about that. I remember, you know, talking to him and you know, obviously you would want to stay on a top level team, right? And, you know, when you get traded away, that can be tough on your mental. And then, you know, maybe not doing as well there and then getting demoted down. Like as much as people, like I've heard on social, some people are like, well, if you just change the name of academy, and I do think changing the name of academy is an interesting discussion.
Some people on social, I said that on the dive, and I also tweeted it on social.
I know, but I was gonna you didn't let me finish my point. If you change the name of academy, like going off of what you had said, people were saying then players wouldn't mind getting put down because then it's not like you're getting demoted. I'm like, that's not true. You know, no matter what you call it, you could call it, you know, the like best league in the world league, and you're still going to know that it's a demotion, you know, if you're getting put down from LCS, which is the top level in North America, to another league. So that's all I was going to say. So I don't think that would solve that, but you know, people do need to recognize that they have to take it seriously. And if you believe that you're at a higher level, if you believe that you are too good for academy, then prove it. Show that you are too good for academy and make your way back up to LCS. So, you know, I'm excited to hear, you know, that about that interview and to hear like about his mindset with that.
And to just echo, like, the people who have that mindset are often the ones who do seem to come back into the LCS. DeMonte, when he was in Academy, you know, I was talking with him about it, and he was like, yeah, some people actually just like don't care in there. And he's like, it's insane to him. And that, like, and he was saying, like, I'm here to prove myself that I deserve another shot. And like, no surprise, split later, he gets it. Golden Glue has a very similar mindset. You know, he's been interviewed a number of times about, like, I'm going to like work my butt off in Academy and show that no one is better than me. So you have to give me another shot in these kinds of things. And like, it's no surprise that contract flips his mindset, and sounds like not too much later. It still obviously probably took a lot of work, and I don't want to downplay that part of it, but like, he's back in the LCS now.
Yeah, I will say that he also touched on, because it wasn't like, you know, he came in and started smashing everybody, right? He was like, okay, you know, at the beginning of the game did have that miscommunication with the laners as far as the invade on Gromp.
The Olaf invade,
and that's something. So it's not like, oh, everything's all stars and rainbows right now. But that is, again, he addressed that specifically as well. So
yeah, the Volibear game wasn't great. The next game they won, which was the Olaf game, and that was the
big mistake. Yeah,
to be fair, he was good, but I've been casting LCS for a long time, and I'm pretty convinced that was the worst game I've ever cast. That Dignitas 100 Thieves game. I'm like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yep, that was it. That was the worst game I've ever cast, as far as
not a Honda MVP game.
No, not a Honda. Definitely not a Honda MVP game. Not even in the discussion. That, like, there was just so many like comical individual mistakes, and that contracts invade was one of them, to be fair, because even just like the movement, like where he like went in, he got spotted, and then he just like hesitated so much, he's kind of running back and forth as he's getting hit. Well, and then like to transition into some of the other people, because they played against a team that made roster swaps. This was, you know, them going up against Dignitas, Phoenix, and Dardoch. And oh my God, Phoenix had just such a horrible TF game. You know, the first ult where he's ulting on top of the Olaf and Orianna by himself and just instantly dies.
It was so funny seeing like the recognition too, where they're like all running away. They see the pork come in and they're like, what the hell is this guy doing? And they both instantly turn around for him.
That, and then again, top lane, like, I feel like he had 0 good ults the whole game. Like, there was another play top lane where Orianna like comes around corner and like ults him, and they gets GP ulted. And I don't know exactly how much health he had, but he had a decent amount of health. He pops his ult, and then he literally just strafes back and forth in the GP ult and never reactivates his ult to even try to channel. It's like, there's no more CC, bro. What are you trying to dodge? Like, what's happening here? It was,
I feel like I empathize with the frustration, but mine is less like in-game and player oriented and more organizational. Like, I don't think I want to throw any of my scorn or like, you know, stuff like that at any of the players in this position. I'm definitely just looking at this, the way this roster was built from the ground up, going all the way back to spring. Like, they basically signed 10 players who are in their prime or past their prime, with the exception of Johnson, who does, you know, still have some room to grow. And it's not like prime, you know, people can't get back to it or whatnot, but I'm just saying they put 0 developmental effort into Academy. Like, they signed all players that we have seen for years. And now that they're struggling, what do they have to do but put in those players who are on a 10th place team and are going to keep being on a 10th place team? And the org can do nothing forward thinking, like trying to figure out who you want to keep for next year and those kinds of things, because they didn't take Academy seriously when they draft, like when they signed their players. And it's super frustrating. And that's what I'm way more mad about with these roster swaps. It's not any of the specific players, but like, instead of being able to give new people shots, you know, people who deserve it, like Treats and some of these other people who are doing great, or Palafox, or like whoever, you know, Dig just has a bunch of people who we've seen before. And so, like, I think it's fine to have them as veteran presences. I think it's fine to have them as backups in positions where you're having a position battle potentially. Like, these kinds of players definitely have a place in the Academy, but not all 5 of them together on the same roster. So that way, when you struggle, you have nothing to do but put in together another lineup
for Frog and his Phoenix.
Yeah, like, what is the point of that? Yeah. What is the point?
I feel like, because again, there are nuances to this conversation, and I think some of the extremes should be separated, where people are just lumping all of like, okay, this person has played for X years and age, and we've seen them before into one group. We just talked about contracts. You know, he's played for a very long time. He's a very young player, but we've seen him before. He has played before. He's been on multiple teams. People would group him in that group of like, he has had his chance. And the nuance of that is up to the coaches, is up to the scouting team, is up to these organizations to do the work, is filter out who actually has the motivation or who is going to put in the work, not necessarily having these strict guidelines of, oh, they've played, you know, X amount of years or something like that. It is getting that mix that Mark is talking about that has the super motivated, talented young ones, as well as the guys that are really looking to put in the effort for their next chances.
Yeah, I mean that's completely the key, right? And I've also seen, you know, some really extreme takes. You know, people messaging me on social and stuff and saying like, oh, well, should anyone who's played 2 years in the LCS just be banned from academy? You know, like not allowed. I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. Veteran players are extremely useful. They are referenced all the time by young players. You know, for helping them to actually get up to speed quickly, for being able to, you know, speed their improvement. Blabber even talked about like how lucky he was when he was in academy to get to play with Sneaky and Jensen because of this crazy roster swap that actually happened with C9 in the LCS, and how valuable it was to actually play with these top level veterans, right? So it is extremely valuable. But I'm with you, Mark. You know, when it doesn't make sense to have 5 veterans on your LCS team and also 5 veterans on your academy team. There needs to be a mix, right? There needs to be something that you can actually try. And I know I'm kind of going hard on that Phoenix game, but that was something. You know, it was something. To be fair to Dardoch, I think his Graves game, he had some pretty major mistakes, some very costly mistakes. You know, that was in that same Did cost 100 Thieves game, but I thought his Wukong game was actually pretty solid.
Yeah, it was good.
The Wukong game was against Cloud9, so yeah, you lost. But I mean, I was pretty happy with how he played overall. He did obviously fall really far behind Blabber, but that's just like, I don't know. You just honestly can't really judge off that. It's the worst team in the league versus the best team in the league. But still, overall, you know, if we're like power ranking how happy I am with the roster swaps, I'm the least happy with Dignitas, both in performance and in just like who you swapped in, right? Like there's nothing new and exciting here for me. And yeah, I agree with you that I'm pretty disappointed with like how the roster was just built from the beginning, you know, including LCS and Academy.
Yeah, as far as this being the Honda MVP section, then I think we're all in agreement that it's either 100 Thieves or Immortals that's gonna get the you know, first place spot from us. I have been so pleasantly surprised by Insanity, and even Alorum, who, you know, has played a lot of tank duty, has horrendous stats because he's Malphite multiple times under the turret.
His Urgot game was good.
He's getting camped by Cloud9, and he's getting just, you know, dove over and over and all this stuff. He still has a good attitude about it, but Insanity, legitimately, like his Orianna games were impressive on the LCS stage versus a lot of high caliber opponents. And that is not something that I expected. As well as Immortals with their roster swap, I think it was the most surprising to me because I had similar feelings where I didn't feel like they did a lot of the groundwork of researching super well and getting multiple possible up and comers. But boom, Insanity has been exceptional on the Rift. He's been tweeting out like, I'm playing better than I ever have before, and like he's gonna keep going. It's just you know, like, you go, man.
Yeah.
Get it. He's
I think at least they have better matchups between, like, okay, Smithy's a stud. We know that. Potluck's relatively new. You know, like Alltech and Gate. Alltech was coming back after being out of the league. We went and grinded Korean solo queue. Well, we're going to back him up with Apollo and Hakuho, one of the most, you know, stable bot lanes in the league. So I do think there's a little bit more forethought put into this lineup a little bit. And I think that they've actually been pretty good. I don't want to like get ahead of ourselves, but they had 2 super winnable games against TL and EG. They beat Golden Guardians and C9. What are you going to do? And like they could have easily been 3-1 in this stretch without really small mistakes not going their way. Yeah. You know, Insanity gets a lot of the blame for this, but he also, like you said, played well the rest of the game. But like the Orianna ult and the Azir shuffle in when maybe they could have just slow played that. Like, but regardless, like those are super winnable games for this lineup, and I think that they're a lot better than their record shows right now.
As far as O2s go, there was some people even, you know, talking about like, is this the best O2 we've ever seen, and all this kind of stuff, which is like really funny and you know, almost impossible to quantify. But you're also like, huh, because they actually played a pretty solid game for a lot of it. And despite the fact that Alorum has some pretty terrible laning stats, he has been like blinding Malphite and things like that. Like obviously the Urgot game was his counter, and he actually did do well. And I'm actually of the opinion, I've been talking about this for a while, that there are other tanks besides Ornn that are actually really strong, and it's okay to be down 20 CS on a Malphite or a Maokai if it actually makes sense in the composition, right? And it can be very, very valuable for the team fights. And we did actually get to see Maokai come out this last weekend. We have seen Malphite come out from him a couple times. These are things that I think are more situational than the Ornn pick, but can be very, very effective. And I'm kind of waiting for them to show up. Malphite, especially versus AD matchups, is incredibly strong. Maokai, especially versus AP matchups, is incredibly strong. So I do think it's one of those situations where, like, at least there is some justification for the poor laning stats, and overall, I've been pretty happy with what they have been showing us. So this one I think is a bit on the better side. Obviously the drawback or the argument against it, if you're trying to take that stance, is that Alorum is still someone who's been around for a really long time. Insanity I think has been in the scene for a long time, so it's not like these guys are really true like new up and comers, and that's why I would still probably say I'm like most excited about like Poom coming up and that sort of stuff. But Alorum and Insanity haven't really had their shot at LCS. So that part of it is I think interesting, and to see like, hey, now that you're here, can you actually improve it? And it's also really sparked a lot more conversation in the community with the treat suite, and a lot of people talking about the fact that it's like, and even Crumbs saying that like, I can't remember who all he said, but I think he said at least like TSM and C9 Academy would be like, in top 6 or something like that in LCS, he believes. So a lot of people are talking more about Academy, and I think it's at least getting more of a part of the conversation. Which I think can be a really good thing for the league, because if a lot of the academy talents are just being overlooked as just like, oh, well, they're only doing well because they're in academy type thing. Well, hey, we're actually getting some evidence that some of the teams that aren't actually even top teams in academy can come to LCS and compete, because this was a team that was 3-3 in academy, and they've actually been competitive against some of the top teams in LCS.
Yeah, I tagged Golden Glue on Hotline League a couple nights ago, and we had a lot of conversation around like how to differentiate a little bit like the people who have been around for a while, because there's a lot of them. Mm-hmm. But like, has this person really had a shot? Like, were they given a full split? Alorum, I don't believe has. Insanity definitely hasn't. Are they still motivated? Like, was their career peak 2 or 3 years ago, and it's just been like this downward slide? Or like for someone like Golden Glue, he's not worse than when he was on Dignitas. He's not worse necessarily than when he was on subbing in for C9, like, and trying to evaluate these kinds of players. And like, I don't think Alorum is worse now than he was 2 or 3 years ago. So I definitely don't, for some of the people who've been around, I think these are some of the other metrics you can look at. And like, I'm still a little wary about Immortals, because the way that they brought all 5 in, just copy paste the whole spreadsheet and bring it over. Like, I'm still a little bit like, okay, if your goal is Worlds, is Alorum really a better option than Soaz? Like, I'm still a little.
I don't think the goal is Worlds.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like,
that it is
right, and that's why I'm like, okay, but then should you be playing Potluck, and like, or do you need Smithy for the stability for Insanity, so you don't have a completely new thing? Like, these are some of the things that I'm still a little questioning about, but I do think that they look a lot better.
Yeah, the goal is Worlds, in the same way that my goal is also to be a multimillionaire, and so I can retire, not have to stress out about about anything. You love to see it, but they're 1-7 right now, so yeah. It's definitely going to be a rough ride. I would say the argument for me for doing copy paste is that they've been practicing all together with those 5 people, and that's something that I do value a lot. Is for at least getting instant wins. But let's get right into the top of the LCS, because this is the most discussed topic. It is everybody under Cloud9 that's in basically tier 2, TSM, Team Liquid, Flyquest, Evil Geniuses, and I think CLG has dropped out of that now with the last one, but you can flirt with having CLG in there as well. But maybe after the last one, Azale's not flirting.
No, they're 4-4. Yeah. I don't think that they're really in that discussion as much anymore.
Especially after the way they lost to TSM, which just erupted a second rage-induced just shouting match from Freak. He's just like, yeah, I've got enough of this.
You got to be
nothing intelligently proactive macro-wise in the last 25 minutes.
You got to be someone with a positive record to enter the conversation. That's the bar. They're the line. They're Clutch Gaming from 3 years ago. You know, at least Clutch even beat TSM back then. So like, until CLG, they're not in the second place conversation.
I agree, and I've really enjoyed being there for the Freak eruption. But let's talk about these teams then. The first four I just mentioned: TSM, Team Liquid, Flyquest, Evil Geniuses.
So I kind of want to start with Liquid, just because they're the ones that I'm like the most like almost feels like suspect or the hardest to quantify. Because okay, you're 6-2, that's a good ass record, nice job, but when you start to actually look at a lot of these games, you're like, how did you win this game? Like, this is legit off of, you know, horrible plays from your opponents, like big throws, you know, things that don't even feel like they are like forcing the mistake late game out of their opponents. It's like unforced errors, you know, and things like this. You know, I believe it was, there was like the Immortals game, they were way down against Golden Guardians. They gave up Soul and still won. Against Flyquest, it was MASH with that like insane throw at Baron. Like actually one of the only ways they could ever lose that game. And then misplaying, you know, multiple team fights later. Like so many of TL's games have been, you know, a big struggle, including against some of the worst teams in the league. You know, it's not even just against the best teams. Their game against, you know, Immortals is a struggle. Their game against Dignitas was even a struggle. Like they don't have clean wins against like anyone except maybe their TSM win, their first game of the season, where they slammed TSM when TSM was playing that game pick. So
they had I guess I was say even the 100 Thieves game, they still Baron. I was looking at their gold graphs. It's the only other one that kind of continues like this, but
yeah, they were mostly in control for that. But then
they were mostly in control, yeah. But then Kalista rendered.
So let me get your split then, as you're discussing, and we're kind of discussing these four teams. Let's split this tier 2 into at least you know, second place and third place, because for me, I do have it as the standings are with TSM and Team Liquid over Flyquest and Evil Geniuses after that this last weekend, because especially your example with Team Liquid where Flyquest like MASH has this huge throw. I'm like, you know what, Team Liquid did get another game kind of thrown their way, but the reason they have this record is that they haven't done those exact same ones, and that's Flyquest doing it. So I have more demerits for Flyquest off of that, which if we get into the MASH versus Wild Turtle thing, I think is an interesting debate right now, as I've talked to a lot of players that have been screaming against them. And I think there's a definite chance that we see a roster swap, as when they first made that change, they talked about them sharing time and competing for the spot. And whenever I research into a player, I'm doing the eye test, I'm looking at the stats, and I'm asking their opponents what they think about that, because I think an opponent of someone is the most honest opinion that you get of someone.
Unless they really don't like them. They're like, they suck. They don't deserve it. But I'm with you.
Might be a little unbiased in some scenarios, yeah.
But it's just hard for me with TL. Look, and I'm not convinced that they're bad, because they're still like, they're finding a way to win, right? And that does deserve some credit, that they are resilient, and that they are, to your point, not the ones that are making those critical throws. But it's also like, I'm trying to think of a good comparison, but we get these teams, you know, usually like almost every year there's some team that starts with a really good record, and kind of look at them and like, are you gonna repeat that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how many of these feel like lucky wins? And maybe they improve because they do have, they obviously have the potential for this to have just been a legitimate record. Like their player level is high enough that I think, you know, if they actually play to their level, they could repeat this record and finish as a top team. But like from the games that they have shown me, I just don't think that their quality of gameplay has been that high. Like it doesn't feel like you could count on winning these games, you know, from those situations that they have been in. And it's tough for me because it doesn't feel like they play very proactive. It feels like they sit back and play scaling. They often don't have a lot of forms of engage. So they are largely dependent upon their opponents making unforced errors. Like they're not winning their lanes. They're not doing a lot.
Can I ask Mark then, who do you count on?
Because
so that's I'm having a hard time counting on anyone.
Yeah, that was my whole point when you're like, oh, we can try and separate them into tiers, because I don't agree necessarily. Like the teams that are sitting at 6-2 have some of the most inconsistent gameplay in terms of when they're winning and should be able to close out. They don't and can't. TSM and TL both have some atrociously long games where this is going back and forth, and they're struggling to get things done. TL more so than TSM, but TSM also hasn't played C9 yet, so they're playing this weekend. Add another L on their record. They're 6-3. Someone else could easily pick up a win, and now they're 6-3 as well. So like, there's a part of me that's still hesitant because every other team has played C9, as well as the fact that like the teams that are 5-3, like EG and Flyquest, they still lose some games. All their wins have a level of consistency to them in how the goal graphs look and how the game plays out and what they're doing to win those games. And like EG has lost a lot of games that look really, really bad, but they're almost always with this like kind of like, they're kind of experimenting in draft against good teams like Karma mid, Cassidon mid, Kog'Maw mid. Like these are all things where I'm like,
yeah,
is that
how many excuses can we keep giving them? Because I feel similarly to you, where I'm like, ooh, but EG has the best wins, right? But then they keep losing, and now I'm like, oh god, like, well, this is part of it too, right?
Yeah, but my point is that, okay, you can say that these are the problems with EG, that they have more losses, and some of them have looked pretty terrible. But I can also say their wins look great. When they win, they look amazing. When you talk about repeatability, like I can see them doing that again. Is TL going to get a Baron steal from mass shifting in?
So let me get your guys' breakdown.
So like I look at wins just as importantly as I look at losses in the regular season for trying to evaluate a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's really hard, right? You know, and I still maybe feel like I have more confidence in Flyquest than these other teams. I still feel like I would maybe put Flyquest second. TSM, to be fair to them, we haven't really talked about them much, but they do have 4 straight wins. Yes, there are like a lot of, I think, games like TSM struggle to me feels like they are not good at closing games. TSM does feel like they are getting better at like getting leads and stuff at least. And they seem to struggle more in the mid and the late game. That at least gives me some confidence in like in their laning ability and their ability to create these leads. I think is somewhat improving. But if I had to do it, like I was much more bought on EG for a while. I was thinking EG was second best team, but it's just too many bad games for me now. Like I don't know. I guess I would do like maybe like Flyquest and then like TL, TSM kind of like right there, and then EG at the bottom grouping of that. But none of the teams are perfect, so it's really, really hard.
Yeah, I'm assuming in this ranking we're talking like, okay, take them as they are now, put them in best of 5s. Who's going to come out of like this like 4-team bracket? And I would definitely actually side more towards Flyquest and maybe even EG because while they do have these horrible games, they're also going to have some of their good games. In a best of 5, you got to win 3 games. And like, you know, they do some of that stuff. And I think TSM, to speak about them a little bit more, like they are looking really good on an individual level. Like Spica has impressed. He's better than I thought he was. Bjergsen's having a bit of a resurgence in terms of just how much of an influence he's having over these games. His TF game was incredible all over the map and stuff like that. I think he got player of the week this week. So like they are looking a lot better. Broken Blade is not getting quite as much of attention, but he still is like being pretty proactive in his lane. I think I don't watch him just doing nothing. And bot lane has been decent. So like I'm pretty optimistic on TSM improving from here and ironing out some of these problems. But just for right now, I'm not quite as sold given the history that I have with Flyquest and EG.
I'm going to talk a little on TSM then to fill it out because I was taking notes during their Golden Guardians game. Now, as far as how good their early game 1 was, it was so insanely good. They had all 3 outer towers down at 17 minutes and almost an all due to Bjergsen. Like he uses his TF ultimate top side, then he teleports bottom side. He makes plays on both sides of the map. Boom, boom, boom. They're taking down the towers. But from that point, all outer towers down at 17 minutes. You're the TF team that has split pushing advantage. You can play sidelines. Then it stalls out for so long. That's where you start to get into the rocky zone where we keep bringing up the mid game. And Bjergsen talked about it in his interview afterwards. So this is not just analyst talk. Bjergsen as well talked about being very upset with how they can push it forward, even though they still do get the victory. Double Lift also pretty unhappy with specifically his play down for the bottom lane, which was definitely an issue for them. But I still have these high highs with TSM where I start out the game, I'm like, oh my God, look at this. Brixton's hard carrying, boom, boom, up both side lanes, 17 minutes, everything's down, and you get into the groove again. And so I feel like it's this constant roller coaster with me.
And it's like, what's easier to fix, right? Because that's a hard question too. Because it's just as important to be good at the mid game, and the late game. And some of these other teams are doing better there, but really sucking in the early game.
Yeah, and it's also like, past history a little bit, like on the back of my mind, like, oh yeah, they looked really good at parts in spring. Don't forget, like they beat C9, they were playing them close, and then they hit a weird streak, and like the improvements just kind of stopped, as well as the drafts were a little bit weird. They to be fair to them, have experimented in draft too with like the Fiddlesticks mid, and they've actually been one of the teams that's pretty good about trying new stuff out. So I'm getting cautiously optimistic about TSM. I don't quite think they're there yet, but they have a lot of things like in their favorites that you should be excited about.
Yeah, and on the champion diversity point, esports stats tweeted out, like our stats team tweeted out that the basically amount of picks, and I think this was after this weekend ended. So TSM had 30 unique picks, the most in the league. Second most was Dignitas at 26, TL at the bottom at 21. So they are the most diverse as far as that goes. Champion diversity doesn't necessarily mean like it's not like the best metric for strength, but just your point of trying things, right?
I also just had to laugh at that exchange because, like, I don't know if you have to follow a couple personal accounts to this, but like
Freak,
like
calling out chat.
Yeah, Freak called out Jat for having the least played, but they're like, it was in the middle of the week, so they were getting updated, so they were actually like fine, like they were actually in the middle of the pack. And then it's funny now that it comes out that they're at the bottom again.
Well, they were still always at the bottom, actually. They were never in the middle. It was just that he was flaming them because Jat said in an interview that they'd been getting criticized for not trying stuff and that they're actually in the middle of the pack. So Freak's like, I'm gonna get him, and like
And just on that point, like the criticism was never about the quantity of champions played. It was the freshness of them. It's like, I don't care if Jensen plays Ori, Azir, Cassio, Ryze, and has 4 champions and throw TF in there. I forget his exact champion pool. It's like 5, but they're all old. And same with Impact. Like, the top lane is in a bit of a resurgence right now. You can play cool stuff, guys. Like, go look at the LPL, go look at LEC, and it's like, I play Mord, Aatrox, Ornn, DN.
I got an idea.
Yeah,
I got an idea for a Mark segment where he goes to squeeze champions like fruit and he's buying at the store and he's like, it's an old one. It's
Mordecai's
squishy.
Stale.
Yeah, nice, really fresh AP Nunu mid here. I think this one's gonna go real well.
To be fair, their bot lane does cool stuff. I'll give Core JJ and Tactical a little bit of credit. Core JJ is the one who's doing stuff, and Brox is just on Trundle Lisa and duty.
It's definitely an interesting discussion, though, right? And it's we are being critical because we're all I think looking through the lens.
The question is second best. That's why we're being critical.
Exactly. Well, and it's also is there going to be someone that can compete with Cloud9, right? And I think that's also why you referenced the Bjergsen interview and how they were self-critical and Double Lift, but also go look at Brox's Twitter. Literally every tweet is like, we didn't do very well.
There's an interview on the front page right now about like, I'm not happy. I try to be more aggressive and we're weak.
So it's like the players are feeling the same way. The players are realizing their issues, right? Like it's really funny. Like when I was scrolling through Brox's Twitter, it's like, we won, I guess. And then, big relief that we somehow still won today. Lots to improve on. The previous day, well, that was disappointing. Need to step it up.
Look at
tomorrow.
Double Lift. It's like all clown emojis for after every game.
The games that they played before that, really underwhelming game from us today. After every game, Brox is just like, well, I guess we sucked, but we still won. So the players are aware of it. The teams are aware of it. They are working at it. And it's really just going to be, can someone separate them from the pack? Because I do think while we kind of give our power rankings, I don't know how you feel, Kobe. I don't know if you have yours, but like it's minute details because no one has looked like a dominant second team.
Yeah, I gave mine at the very beginning. I do have them as the standings with TSM and Team Liquid above.
Results-based analysis.
Yeah, but I would leave EG at the bottom, a little bit under Flyquest.
Yeah,
because the last weekend being the tipping point in the extra evidence of not throw out wins or not throw out losses for me. Where I'm just like, all right, this is too many times.
Yeah, it's
to be like, all right, the loss just happened because Jasuke went 0-9. I'm like,
it's happening too many times.
Well, we got 3 strikes now, so EG gonna have to.
TSM hasn't played C9 yet. They're gonna lose some. They're gonna lose, and then they'll be tied with EG.
They beat them
6-3.
last split. No, okay. I 100% would bet everything on Cloud9 for the upcoming TSM match, but that is gonna be a hype one. Shall we move on past our tier 2 bunch of possible contender teams to take a look at CLG and Golden Guardians?
Yes, I mean, we obviously touched on the bottom with the roster swap stuff, and then we kind of touched on the top. CLG and Golden Guardians, I think it's kind of just like looking at these teams through the lens of like, can anyone actually challenge this next grouping of teams, right? You know, it's obviously going to be very important to kind of get upper bracket for playoffs, you know, in this coming playoff format where we have 8 teams actually making playoffs. So, you know, just making it to playoffs, I don't think is going to be enough for most squads if you're trying to really challenge for Worlds, for top 3. So it's kind of trying to make the push towards the top half, right? And I mean, CLG, I feel like maybe has more of a shot of it, but they've been on kind of a downward trend. Golden Guardians, you know, the positive spin for them is it feels like they're maybe finding out more of a direction, but then their last game wasn't very good when TF got taken away from them and whatnot. Like they feels like they're struggling to really find a way to play it out.
If we were going to talk about these teams like crust layers of the earth, would you want to be the core, like the hot?
Yeah.
But you're in more. So is C9 the core or are they the crust?
C9's the moon. They're not even on Earth anymore.
I mean, we can do atmosphere layers.
That's it right there.
We want to do atmosphere layers. Let me go to Google and find different atmosphere layers. Because that's like there's crust, upper mantle.
You know, everyone's trying to get to space. C9's on the moon. Dignitas is in the Stone Age, right? They're like they have like sticks and fire, and they're doing paintings on the cave wall. You know.
So we got the moon is C9. Then we have like the exosphere and the thermosphere, which is like those are the top 2 teams.
No. We can do it as far as civilization. You know, they're pretty advanced. You know,
they're space age, got Bronze Age, somewhere.
Yeah.
The Dark Age. No,
the Dark Age is Dignitas for sure.
I'm just trying to figure out new so people don't keep saying soup and stuff. I need to pitch some.
But
soup
is your favorite, Mark.
No, I gotta find some new pitches.
Your new analogy sucks because it's too complicated. So just
you had to get a basic biology. I can't.
How is the Earth
biology's not the right
biology?
There's organisms and stuff in there, dude. Get out of my face. Geology is what I was looking for. Geology.
And geology relates to all the space.
I'm embarrassed to be associated with what is going on right now.
Don't be embarrassed for me because I haven't said anything dumb. Be embarrassed for my man Mark here.
It's like that
who doesn't know the difference between biology and geology.
Better keep your mouth shut and be thought a fool than open it and prove it. I will open my mouth and prove it. Kobe, you can keep your mouth shut, you coward. I will prove that. I'm like geology, biology, the troposphere.
So how about them
meteorology?
Soup is more your pace, Mark. I think you should stick with the soup.
I eat soup. I understand soup.
Yeah. So how about Golden Guardians and CLG, Mark?
They're the inner core, or they're the upper mantle, I should say.
This analogy is horrible.
I'm sorry I derailed us.
Get me out of here. Let's actually talk about an upcoming matchup then, because I think Golden Guardians versus EG is actually interesting. For me personally, I had EG kind of hanging at the bottom of the previous tier, and for Golden Guardians,
you like my hoodie, by the way?
I was moving up again. Last time I raised it with him, but I'm just gonna continue sitting for this time around. Now, do you think Golden Guardians can take down EG with some intelligent drafting? Because I feel like drafting is the most vulnerable area of EG right now, and Golden Guardians actually have some pretty intelligent ones that they've been able to attack people with.
So my thing with EG is I don't think that they've been like drafted into corners at all, right? You know, drafting is an issue for them, but it's like self-inflicted wounds, right? Like, you know, it's not as though they lost the sword fight. They like stabbed himself in the chest and then like, you know. So that's where I'm like, can you exploit them in the draft? Probably not, but they could exploit themselves in the draft. So that's you're kind of just like, please.
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm looking at it. And as far as Golden Guardians, like they've done some decent stuff, but like they have been very reliant, I think, on TF and a lot of this semi-global stuff. And it felt like TSM, I think, it attacked them fairly well with that. When TSM actually played them, they banned out GP, they banned out Tom Kench, they first picked the TF, and then it was like, what do you got for me? And it was Ashe as their only form of engage. They didn't do anything pretty much the whole game, right? It just felt like Golden Guardians had nothing going. They picked, kind of for these lane matchups where it was like, okay, we'll take Morgana into the TF, but then TF ran over the game anyway, couldn't actually match the global pressure. So my concern for Golden Guardians is, has like the case been cracked, right? Because I actually think they look more exploitable in draft as far as their reliance on this semi-global stuff. Like Demonte's most played by far had been the TF. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the. I don't think I've seen enough out of Golden Guardians that I'm ready. I bought their stocks, but I think I'm passing on ever doing that again. I think they're firmly in the like 6-7 esque tier. I think even Immortals could pass them based off their recent performances. So like, they have some good players. They have some good ideas what they want to do in the draft. I think that they have an identity. I just don't think that they're executing well at that level. And even if they do start playing a little bit better, I don't think that's going to put them into the next tier. Like, so I appreciate, what they're trying to do with like getting closer as this player who's going to be a more of a carry oriented jungler, and Demonte is more as the facilitator role. And I think they have a clear identity, but they just lack the firepower to get over the edge.
Do you think that Golden Guardians and that style are going to just be worse at it than EG at a very similar, if not the same style? Because the Morgana pick comes from Chovy and LCK. Dragon X picked basically the same comp into TF with Morgana mid plus a Karma for having the double shields. Mm-hmm. But like you're talking about, it comes down to execution. So do you think that, because to me, these two teams have pretty similar architecture.
Yeah, Golden Guardians just can't close any games without split pushing, though. Like that's why I felt like they stopped playing poke comps. They went poke very heavy early in the split with the Nidalee stuff. They had closer Flame Horizon Broxa. They got Soul against TL. They got Soul. I think they've had 2 Soul games where they've actually lost. I'm not 100% sure on that. I know they had the TL one. I really have in my head that they lost another one too with Infernal Soul. But they can't close games unless they split push, right? And that's why I just don't think they have the ability to execute these other comps. They have found a way that works where they hard commit to split push, where they're Tom Kench ulting and TF ulting and they're going for backdoors and they're doing all this stuff, and that has worked for them. The semi-global stuff has really worked for them too. Their C9 game, at least early game, looked like they were competitive, but even if they got ahead, doesn't mean they can close the game. So I just don't have much confidence in their actual ability to like play out these comps. I just don't think that they seem to have like the individual talent to play at that level, and I feel similarly about CLG. CLG, like last week, is similar. Like before they started picking up these losses, they were sitting at 4-2, and I felt a similar way about them as I do about TL, where it just feels like when you're looking at them statistically, when you're looking at the eye test, it feels like they shouldn't be getting away with a lot of these games, and it just feels like CLG didn't, and TL kept doing it. I mean, CLG is averaging down almost 1,700 gold at 15, right? Like their early game is so abysmal that just means you suck at laning, and if everyone on your team sucks at laning, it's like that's not easy to fix.
True. Guess what? They're playing each other this coming weekend as well. So I like pitting them against each other. And I think that we would all put Team Liquid as the advantage team to predict to win in that matchup.
They have better, TL has better individual players. And that's why I think that it's like, hey, maybe you got a little bit lucky in a number of these wins, but you could actually get to the level. Like it's just so weird that like how much they've regressed in 1 year, like, from being like 4-time back-to-back champion to 9th place. And then even this split, though their record is good, their play, I think, looks a lot worse than in any of the 2 years that we had seen them actually winning championships. So, I still have faith that they have the ability to improve. And if they actually are improving as a squad, they have a tremendous amount of talent on TL. They could replicate, a 6-2 record, or a 7-2 record in the second half again, I think. But it requires them to continue improving, right? To not depend on opponents' mistakes.
Yeah, the final CLG point I'll say is just they haven't been able to pick up wins versus anyone with a winning record. I think I'll beat it over the head until like it's proven differently. But the stats don't look good. They're struggling. Same with Golden Guardians. Like they have good early games, but if you look at their gold graphs, like they've had a couple where they had 3K gold leads at 30 minutes, and it's just So
they're like the opposite teams, right? Like Golden Guardians has the good early game, but can't close at all. CLG has terrible early game.
Fuse them, make one good team.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into some patch notes then for solo queue and some Twitter questions shortly after. Now, since this one's not coming out to pro play, 3.14 or 10.14, not just yet, is coming out to solo queue today though, or tonight. But is there anything for your normal games that you're looking for?
They killed Wukong.
they took a point right in the heart.
0.15 seconds off his knockup duration. I think he's fine.
Just never come back from that, huh?
Yeah, I'm never touching him again.
I mean, it's kind of hard to judge these things sometimes because people will have these meme reaction of like, oh, it's such a small number, but he gets 2 activations of the ult, so you get twice as much as far as the nerf on the knockup duration. And I would actually prefer these smaller hits than like, oh, you know what, Axe Wukong. And I think this is a pretty decently measured nerf, and it's going to hit people more than they think it's actually going to hit Wukong.
Mm-hmm. This is an interesting patch for me because a fair amount of the changes are kind of like buff nerfs, where they're doing one thing but also doing something else in the same one. Karthus, Pike, two that stand out for me as just like, oh, you're kind of buffing but also nerfing, and I'm not quite sure what to think of it.
Well, Karthus is, I think, trying to get it into mid lane, right, and not just being a jungle champion, because very, very few people actually play it in a solo lane anymore. It's been really popular in jungle for a long time, and people seem to hate it as a jungler because it scales well, and it's just like power farming. It's not interacting with you.
And it's a buff for jungle as well, this, by the way. Even though you are going to do 15 less damage on your Qs at max rank to jungle monsters only, I would definitely trade that for the 10 move speed and slightly more health in the early game. Not having move speed on Karthus just killed it for me. I never played Karthus again after doing one game on the -10 move speed. If as a jungler, if your champion gets nerfed by 10 move speed, I completely support you in just raging out, because it makes it so bad. That affects clear speed too. Move speed, you're not killing the camp faster, but you're constantly moving as a jungler when you're moving between camps, so it lowers your clear speed that way, and when you're going for ganks. And for Karthus, you have to position to hit those Qs. Like, even if people are in your range for some of them and you're trying to play the mini game of trying to hit them, you also need the move speed to be able to kite and position for them. So I think it is also a buff for jungle Karthus, and we'll probably see, at least in solo queue, a decent resurgence of people trying out Karthus, because the nerf to the damage isn't that big, and he does still retain a buff to damage when he is going for ganks and is hitting people with Qs. Personally, for pro applications, the Sejuani buffs, I think, might be enough to force some people
Speak of sweating
onto the champion. As much as a meme as it is, buffing E damage again back by 15 is a pretty low cooldown. You can use it on multiple things. I do like that it's a focused buff of like, okay, we're not just going to have Sejuani all the time as this generic best tank for competitive play. It really is emphasizing the synergy that she has with other melee champions. Mm-hmm. Like if you have Yasuo or something like that, you can stack it up real quick, or
Aurelia,
some top
Renekton,
laner,
all the top lane stuff.
And you want to play, you got Someday on your team, and you're like, you know what? We get some Sejuani in here, and some days on some melee carry, and we can stack up stuns real quick, and it's going to be more damage, stuff like that. So I kind of like the angle rather than just getting Sejuani generically back in as a beefcake.
My complaint about the Sejuani buffs is like, why not get some other tanks in the jungle, right? Like how long has it been with only Sejuani as a jungle tank? Like,
she's been really dead though, especially for solo queue too.
For yeah, she has, but
in terms of gap of time, not really.
Yeah, exactly. Like, think about over the last, I don't know, 2 years or something. Sejuani has been like the tank to actually be played in jungle and pro. Like, I would be way more interested. Like, where's Zach? Like, give me,
he's probably second on the list too.
I think he's playable, honestly.
Yeah, I just wish we got to see more interesting ones. I find Sejuani just insanely boring to watch, and pros find it insanely boring to play. So I'm
It's
just
not
not a
funny
fan
to
of the
watch
champion.
people whiff the ultimate every once in a while, though. You get a
It's
little
not
moment.
enough of a payoff. But as far as what I'm looking at, if we're just talking about for funsies, because it's not pro play, I immediately, my eyes were drawn to the very bottom of the patch notes. Predator buff, Ghost buff. And I'm looking to go fast here. So, I was immediately thinking about like, I wonder, I don't know if it's actually going to be better, but like, volley with Predator and things like that, right? I have seen, obviously just like Ghost for Ghost champions is going to be better. Things like Olaf can sometimes work with that. Singe is obviously, but like the combination I think could be pretty fun because both of them actually got buffed. At max rank, Ghost is going to be like 8% more. At level 1, it's 4% more. So it's not enormous, but the damage is actually going up on Predator proc, and the cooldown is going down by 10 seconds. So those two in combination, I think, could at least be pretty fun. Like playing some of the go fast style builds are really fun when you do like Predator and Ghost and Righteous Glory and stuff, and you just like lane gank people at 1,000 miles an hour. I enjoy that.
For me, when I saw that, I was like, excuse me, the cooldown for a Predator is just always up now. As a jungler, it is literally just always going to be up. This is the second time they reduced it. The last one was a huge reduction in itself, and they're taking it down 10 more seconds. To be fair, this one isn't as big as the previous reduction.
Added.
A little smidgen down, but buffing the damage back, I thought was necessary. The damage nerf that they gave to Predator, every pro that I talked to did not view it as the cooldown reduction was worth it. Even though the cooldown reduction was huge, and you're like, okay, you can have your Predator up for pretty much every gank now. Because the damage got hit so hard, nobody wanted to use it. Was simply the answer that I got from every single person. So that buff into the damage, I think, is going to be the meaningful part.
The other thing that drew my eye for pro play is Varus. Early Varus. Speculation on whether it knocks him down a little bit or not at all.
I'm feeling like this is a chunky one. I'm thinking Varus is feeling this one.
This feels like your two biggest trading patterns both took fatty damage hits.
Yeah, I mean 20 off the base damage of your E, which is pretty much what like everyone starts with on Varus in lane, and then the total attack damage going from 150 flat to it scales up and it doesn't even get to that. I think is pretty significant. I think that one is probably less significant, to be honest. But it's two pretty big nerfs for your laning power, and pros that I have talked to about Varus still felt like Varus, it could be a risky pick because while it had a lot of dominating power, it could get outscaled really hard. And if you don't have as much of like a huge presence, like a free win in the laning phase or in the early game, then there's much more of a risk of getting to that stage where champions like Aphelios and Ezreal and stuff can kind of just like output a lot more. So I tend to think this is going to make a pretty big difference. But the champion is just like permabanned everywhere. So it making a pretty big difference might not actually take it out of pro play. It just might take it off the ban list, and we actually start seeing more Varus mixed in.
I am going to put my money on it's actually out for me now.
From 100% presence to just gone?
I mean, maybe you get a couple stragglers. I'm not going to say it's 100% gone, but I think significant reduction, like
for sure
80% reduction in amount of Varus that you see showing up.
I thought that was going to happen with Yuumi last patch with the E nerfs, and the win rate in solo queue dropped 4 or 5% from what at least I saw. It wasn't high elo, down. But it went down a lot across all of them. So, after that, I'm a little bit more hesitant to be like, it's out of pro play, because I thought that was one that was going to kill it, and it's still kicking around a little bit.
I just think that now you're going to have a reason to pick Varus, like it's for your comp. You want to change the corruption, and you want the poke damage.
And Ashe is already being played a little bit in the same way right now, so there are comps that would want this.
And Ashe is going to have a way better laning phase than Varus now. Ashe's lane phase is already really good, and I think this puts her up to be a new queen. Now, for exciting buffs, that aren't even really being highlighted as a player that gets autofilled to support sometimes. I always play Alistar or Leona, somebody that's going to get in there and smash some people. And I'm always happy to see some cooldown reduction for Alistar. More smashes, 2 seconds is significant to me because you can actually get multiple pulverizes off in fights considering your ultimate.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy to see that one as just my like autofill buff.
Yeah, it's definitely nice. I'm sure it'll help, but like my feeling, like when I play those types of champions in lane, it's like you engage so rarely. Like most of laning is just
for
like,
lane for sure. I think it's a team fight buff.
For team fight, later on it could definitely matter when you have some CDR and stuff. If you can get that extra Q off, that can be a pretty big deal. But it'll be interesting to see. It doesn't feel like the most impactful patch. It is more of a kind of like a lot of gradual things, except for maybe the Varus one, which could be pretty big. But Twitter questions.
Let's get it.
We got some Twitter questions here. This one's from Raymond James Tayton. And he asks, when I started playing League, double jungle was a major thing. Given priority over early Drakes leading to lane swap, tap priority over Herald, do you think is a strategy teams could look to again? My immediate thought when I was looking at this question, and this is why I kind of want to talk about it, is not that I necessarily think there's going to be double jungle, but there is almost a strategy that can function in a similar way coming back right now, which is actually Nunu mid. Nunu mid is actually getting quite a bit of prevalence. I've actually played against it some, and it's not true double jungle, but essentially what I've seen is WMAX, they go protobelt into tank, and they just are one-shotting the mid lane wave, and then roaming with their jungler, taking objectives, consuming away buffs from the opposing jungler, and it's like really, really annoying to play against as a jungler. So it's not a true double jungle, but it's like almost like pseudo double jungle, and it has a lot of roaming ability.
I would group it as like all the other mid laners that shove waves and move like.
But it has consume, man. It's actually so annoying. Have you played against
like
it?
a really in soul with yeah.
That's the thing that makes it feel a little bit more double jungly, because it's actually they can just secure objectives so effectively, right? It's not just about the roam. It's that they can just show up to dragon, and you have smite and consume, and you're killing these things so fast. It's really, really annoying.
I got to put my hipster cap on here. I have a Twitter video I made about.
Oh, I remember seeing this.
AP Nunu mid. Like 2 years ago when you got the little rework. I think it was 2018. So put that on. I got to ask this guy though. When were you playing League that double jungle was a major thing? Have I just blacked out a period of like when people were legitimately running double jungle?
For pro play, it was never a major thing. So I think it would have to be.
I played League back in season 1 through season 6. I would say I played a fair amount. I don't remember ever in ranked the meta being a
major thing. Yeah,
being double jungle. I don't know how.
I do want to address it though, because I do feel like strategies as far out as that require the team to practice it a significant amount, and it's might not be worth the time investment needed, because it reminds me of as a game shifting a paradigm shift as lane swapping with the old turrets, where you have to play the beginning of the game completely different, and you have to know all of these timings for all of your swaps, and the jungler has a list of where you need to be or you screw the whole thing up. Back during the lane swap meta, I played in solo queue with all of Immortals at the time. This was the Immortals roster that ran North America, and Reignover was getting food, and they just invited me, and then they were like, oh, we have to lane swap this game, and we were playing against some other like 4 out of 5 of a team, and I was like, what the I had even like spectated and talked about all these competitive games with the lane swaps, and I was always so bored, like, oh yeah, they gotta swap here now, they gotta go here now. Being in the game is so much pressure, and
you go the wrong way for 5 seconds, you screw the whole dive up.
Yeah, Huni was like, why the hell are you doing wolves right now? And I was like, I don't know. I'm a jungler. I was killing some junk stuff right now. And he's like, get your ass up right now or we lose. And I was like, oh my God. So that's the type of pressure that I see being applied to a successful double jungle, because the consequences are very easy for the enemy team to pull off. It is so easy with today's champions to set up your 2v1 lane for dives. And it is not easy to get a good 1v2 laner right now that can clear waves super early. If you do this against a pro team, you better believe their double lane versus 2-for-1 is building up a giant minion wave, and they're diving your ass on that turret. As soon as they get there, you're still going to be level 1 because they're going to zone you off the experience. And how do you come back from that? How do you make your double jungle worth it is the key. I will say that I could hypothesize there being a key there and there being success, but you better have your game plan sorted out.
I mean, I would say, given the question was asking, like with the importance of early Drakes and Herald, people still 5-man those when needed. Like you have TP on your top laner that can come down. You have 2 people in the bot lane. Your mid laner will move and your jungler will be there. So like people are already 5-manning for these objectives. You don't need another dedicated, like they come up every 5 minutes. Rift Herald's not till, like 12 or whatever. Like you can't just dedicate a whole role to that and ignore the more important thing, which is the constant stream of gold and experience coming in through the lanes, because that's not easy to make up, to your point, Kobe. And so like you could maybe do it with like 2 hella strong early game junglers where your initial game plan is to hold the other jungler down and basically kneecap them as hard as your bot laner is going to be getting kneecapped here. But even that, it's tough.
It would have to be like you're no longer, because people do non-5-man dragons, but it's usually when you're trading for something on the other side of the map, right?
Yeah.
It would have to be you're able to destroy the other junglers so badly that you are then taking both objectives, right? Like you're doing Herald and Dragon because you have 2 junglers and their jungler's so screwed that he can't even come. And it is really, really hard to do that. So to Kobe's point, I think it would require like an insane amount of execution, because your junglers also would have to be, defending your laners from dives and stuff at the right timings. But it would be really cool to see that stuff pulled off. But it's such a huge amount of work to get that sort of strategy to the level where it's like something that you can put in, that I don't think we're super likely to see it at all.
All right. But I want someone to do it now. So get practicing, all LCS teams. Just make that your identity. We're the double jungle team. We find your jungler.
Dignitas, get on it.
And they're just like, you know what? The enemy jungler is going to be level 1 the first 10 minutes of the game. So figure that one out, and I'll be a fan.
Okay, we got another question here. This one's from Tom Courtney. He says, speaking on a measuring stick for Academy on the dive, how would you feel about a tournament akin to Kespa Cup, either around MSI or Worlds, where Academy and LCS teams not going international play against each other? Pros and cons?
I would say take the bottom 2 teams that didn't make the playoffs and do something. That sounds fine to me, and just run it and put them in Academy playoffs or something, and they don't have to get relegated. You don't have to do anything like that. I don't know. I would be interested in something like that.
Yeah, so I love it. We always have this period where the lower ranked teams
they get off
more
for
of
6
a
months.
vacation. Yeah, they get more of a vacation than the good teams that will go off to international competition have our own. Sweet. You get more exciting tournament play style that just packs more, action into the same time period.
So I would love to watch it from a fan point of view. I never think it will ever happen, ever. Here's why. I think it is absolutely a lose-lose for the LCS teams participating. I think that if you win, you're expected to win. You're an LCS team, idiot. And if you lose, it is just like absolutely you're everyone's shitting on your organization, shitting on your players. So that is why I think it will never happen, especially if it's not like they have to for relegation. I just can't see an LCS team ever opting into this. I would love to watch it from a fan point of view, though, and I do think it could be good as a spark to investigate more academy players and more amateur players and stuff, if you can actually prove that a lot of these academy teams are better than the bottom teams.
Here's my answer to that, though. It's in the benefit of the teams to do it, not the players themselves, but the teams, because the teams want the best talent. The teams want more ways to identify and have pressure and keep people motivated. So if your boss tells you, and the teams are paying the players, if they get behind it, then yes, the LCS players, if they had a choice, would probably opt out of a possible match that showcases you getting beat and there being a better replacement. But I think all of the teams want that. And if the fans all want it and all want to watch it, then the money flow would say yes. So I don't know about never.
Yeah,
I hope so. I hope so. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I hope
the other thing I was going to throw in too is also that like I don't even think like teams are allowed to technically partake in third-party tournaments as like formal teams.
No,
you know,
it would have to be.
So
like
it has to be Riot no matter what. And then you just like, yeah, of course, Riot's making it, and they're the ones saying, "Yep, you have to play in it."
Well, I hope it happens. I think it would be hype, and I think it would be a good catalyst to actually recognizing some of the talent in Academy. And it would be cool because it's actually like more motivation then to make it to Academy. And it's like then if you do well in Academy, you will get your shot against an LCS team to prove your stuff. That would be really cool. Thanks for the question. Now on to the Anchor questions. If you guys have voice questions that you want to send us, you can leave us a voice message. It is anchor.fm that we are using to actually get these. If you search anchor.fm, the dive, you can find that. This first one is coming from Nick Kashok, one of those.
Hi guys, fighting games are famous for including guest characters from other franchises on their roster. My question is, if you could have any character from across video games implemented as a champion in League, who would it be?
Oh, I know a really cool character that should be put in League of Legends. It's a character in WoW. It's called Necrolord Azale. I think it would be perfect for League of Legends. Put me in there.
Yeah, I'd be down.
What kind of warlock? What spec would you be? Would it be Affliction?
Necrolord Azale is a destruction warlock. So while I would prefer Affliction, I would be willing to take the hit, and allow them to put me in as destruction to keep true with the character that's in WoW.
For me, I'm not in a video game, so I can't plug myself that well. So I'll just pick from my favorite franchise. I would definitely take something from Dark Souls. I would love, and my initial thought would probably, they have so many cool character designs, but I think Sif is just so cool. It's just a giant dog with a sword. And I don't know, it's dope as hell. His moveset's not the coolest to translate into like champion abilities, but the aesthetic is amazing. Otherwise, I would have to think a little bit more about like maybe like Nito or something. Like they have so many sick designs though that are so amazing.
All right, here's mine. Mario. I want to see someone jumping, Goomba stomping is one of their main moves. And then like your ult is pull out that hammer from like Super Smash Brothers.
Fireballs. He's got fireballs
like that.
That'd be pretty hype. Gnar can kind of do the Goomba stomp, but it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, no, I need a real Goomba stomp where you Goomba flatten them.
Yeah,
there's no third plane. Like you don't. What would you do? You jump up.
You coins come out of them. Everyone's got to scramble around to pick up the gold from your kill. You don't necessarily.
You're like old TF a little bit or something.
It's just Mario. It's actually just Mario Kart. He gets a car. He could drive around.
He's got little fireballs he shoots out with his Q.
Shoot out blue shells. That'd be pretty hype. I actually, on the real, I think it would be pretty cool. Like, there's a lot of Pokemon I would actually be really excited to have a crossover with. If they get some like Bulbasaur in there and he's like doing vine whips and stuff. That'd be hype.
The Pokemon like MOBA. I think it's on mobile. That like got announced like a week or two ago.
That. I only watched a short trailer. It didn't look very good. All right. Yeah. We got another question here from Vincent Beaver.
Hey guys, it's Icky Coffee. If you could take Blabber and put him on another team, what team do you think would do the best with the Blabber? And would they be good enough to beat Cloud9?
I assume this means that Blabber is still also on Cloud9. Like we've cloned Blabber. And so, like, because otherwise, if you're taking Blabber out of C9, they're not Cloud9 anymore. Their whole identity is around propping him up. So, like, are we okay with that being?
Yeah.
So it's
I'll answer the second
Blabber.
part and say I don't think they're going to beat Cloud9 before answering the first part. But who would be the front runner?
I mean, I get like the ideal situation is like team that doesn't have a very good jungler, but is still good. But almost every team that does well has a really good jungler. That's the thing, because it's such an important role. So it's like, there's Broxa, there's Santorin, there, like maybe people could be like, ooh, Spica, because he's like least experienced or something.
I feel like he's had a lot of success.
He's been good. Yeah. I'm not saying he's not, but it's just like, who do you replace between Santorin, Broxa, and and guys that are like already, and Svenskeren, guys that are already considered really, really good junglers. Like Blabber is better. But does he really transform the team in such a way that they beat Cloud9? And I'm with Mark. I don't think so.
Well, the other thing I was going to say, too, is like I'm less concerned about the quality of jungler he's replacing and the team around them. Like Niski is a very unique player in North America and has deservedly been close in MVP voting, I think, a number of times. And I think you can't just put Blabber with Bjerg or Jensen or PoE and expect the same thing, because they have such different play styles than Niski. And a lot of why Blabber's obviously incredible in his own right, but their play styles, Niski, you're the support, and Blabber is the carry. And I don't think any team could replicate. Like, the closest team to that right now is Golden Guardians, and I don't think Golden Guardians would be better than C9 if Blabber was there.
That's why I want to see it on Flyquest, because I want to see, to Zale's point, how Blabber changes the team. Maybe not how the existing team, would incorporate Blabber. I want to see if adding Blabber to Flyquest just like jumpstarts it, because PoE has made some of those, aggressive plays and has shown a lot more diversity in play style. And I think it would be an interesting experiment. I wouldn't, say that they would be Cloud9.
So we can just clone Blabber up. We'll get to it. We'll start.
Put one on every team. Put a Blabber on every team.
Blabber's for everyone. All of their junglers are out of work. But yeah, I mean, it would just depend so much on how they meld with the team and what the team could build. To your point, Mark, as far as the Niski playstyle, I actually think Bjergsen is the closest to that, or could be the closest to that, because we do see more from Bjergsen than some of those other guys. Him kind of like go towards those supportive roles. People are often criticizing him when he does it, but like, he's been, the guy who like goes to Galio and has played like
Fiddle mid and even
Fiddle tank and Lulu, and like, he's done all those. Bjergsen just plays whatever he thinks is good to win. He doesn't like, oftentimes what's best for TSM is him on a carry, because he's been their best player for so many years. But it would be interesting to see, because I do think that he is a guy that could maybe more adapt to that play style. And TSM also does have like the least experienced jungler, so maybe the biggest upgrade there. But cool question.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of The Dive. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to Honda for making this episode possible. As always, you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or leave us a message on Anchor. Also, Friday Night League returns with a matchup featuring classic Cloud9 versus classic TSM, minus Reginald, before jumping into the LCS for Immortals versus Dig and Fly versus 100.